It is a great pleasure, Mr Deputy Speaker, to follow the member for Edinburgh South, who spoke at considerable length of his conviction that the customs union is the way forward. And he has always spoken with great clarity and certainty. I would say that he's more compelling in his usual manner as Tigger rather than the Eeyore that we saw tonight. And I'd also say that the difficulty of assuming that business is monolithic and always speaks with one voice is that it doesn't. There are businesses in my constituency and that I deal with as a trade envoy who are concerned about the future, and there are others who are relaxed. And both of those views will depend ultimately on what sort of arrangement we reach on trade and customs and on what terms. Which brings us to the preparatory bill this evening, Mr Deputy Speaker. And as the Minister has explained, this is fundamentally nothing other than necessary preparation for when we leave the EU. It's a framework, not a position on a preferred type of future customs relationship. It allows for either of the government's options, one of which is a streamlined system, as far as I can see, essentially identical to the current one, and the second one is a new customs partnership, which we will hear more about, I'm sure, when the bill is published. And of course, this preparatory work is even more important in the sad event of future arrangements not being agreed with the EU. And today the Minister has confirmed that actually HMRC arrangements at our roll-on row of ports will be in place in January 2019, ready to deal with the worst-case scenarios. Now, I believe that there is an important political point behind this, which members of this House who would, as the member for Edinburgh South said, much prefer to stay in the customs union, need to consider very carefully. For there are some who believe that leaving the EU without a future deal or any implementation period would be a walk in the park, and there are others who believe that it would simply be impossible to operate our ports and indeed perhaps much of our trade, and therefore a disaster to leave the customs union at all. But for many of us, whose view has always been that both the UK and the EU would hugely benefit from a strong customs partnership for the future, and what Michel Barnier calls a new partnership in general, then this preparation bill is essential to that. And it is absolutely vital that the EU does not overplay its strong hand at this delicate stage of negotiations. For if the EU decides that negotiations on citizens' rights, Ireland and finance have made insufficient progress to move on to debating an implementation period and future trade and other partnerships, then there is a real danger, I believe, that the momentum moves behind those who believe that not only is no deal possible, but likely or even desirable, that we need to prepare for that situation above all else. And therefore, for those of us who want to see the for those of us who want to see the negotiations succeed, who want to see a new partnership, it is incredibly important that our partners in the EU encourage us to build momentum for this by moving to detailed talks on the future trade and customs arrangements as soon as possible. For now, this is simply an enabling bill of changes. It allows for future UK tariffs, VAT levels, goods classifications, and so on. And as the opposition spokesman himself said, it is both practical and necessary. The amendments, in my view, close off the options and should sensibly be avoided.